Hello and welcome to the final session of the Scottish International Film Education Conference, backed by the Film Education Journal, which has many backers, Screen Scotland, Creative Scotland, UCL, BFI, and this is the final session of a two-day event, and we're fully anticipating this as being as exciting and diverse and engaging as the other three sessions, which have all been great. Hope you agree. My name's Mark Reid, and I usually work at the BFI, but I'm currently on furlough, so I'm here in a personal capacity, and also as part of my learning development program, which is allowable. I'm not allowed to work, but I can do anything which engages me in interesting ideas and debate and discussion. So just in case anybody from the BFI is listening, I don't think they are. So I'll introduce our panelists in a moment and talk a bit about the session, but just to remind you, I think Flip is going to give us a link again to the new edition of the journal, which we're really excited about. We publish twice a year, and it is a forum for debate and introduction and to ideas and exchange of practice from all over the world. And the editorial team, and Jamie and Flip, in particular, Robert, colleagues Andrew, have been doing a great job in introducing a whole range of voices into this space. So that's the journal, and I think, as Jamie's been saying as well, and Andrew said, there's a website just launched to back it up, which expands on some of the ideas and some of the examples and some of the practice, which is, we hope, will be of a particular value to teachers. And the housekeeping, apart from the avoiding the sharp objects and and keeping yourself watered in case it's very warm outside, we're going to have something like a 30-40 minute discussion, first of all, moderated by me, and then we'll open up to questions on this topic. But it's a really good idea, if you hear something and you think, oh, actually, I've got something to say about that, if you put that into the chat as soon as the idea comes to you, then we'll be compiling them as we go along. So don't feel like you have to wait for 40 minutes before you can put a question or a comment in the chat. Put it in as soon as you think of it, because that way we don't have to get to 40 minutes and then ask everybody to make comments and everybody's suddenly dumbstruck. So write things in as soon as you hear them, and we'll compile them. And if you want to actually speak, make a verbal contribution, you can also signal that in the chat, and Jamie or Flip can unmute you at the appointed time, because it's great just to have more voices if you actually want to speak, rather than write in. Okay, so but to the topic, which is a round table. So it's slightly different from the panels the other panels that we've had, in that there won't be a formal presentation from our speakers. They're going to say a bit about themselves and about their work, but we're not having formal presentations and then questions. This is going to be a moderated discussion, and the topic is looking at film education in the community. And just remembering Kerry Abercrombie yesterday talking about film clubs and about film being sometimes in between entertainment and academic theory. And I think this is the kind of third space, the in-between space, that we're going to be talking about this afternoon, which is hugely important for a whole host of reasons, given limitations around curriculum maybe, and also similarly limitations around film as an entertainment medium. So we have Ralitsa Assenova from Bulgaria and from the organisation Arte Urbana Collectif, and she's going to talk to us. Well, she'll explain when I introduce her in a minute. She'll explain about her work, partly because she's written a piece in the journal where she interviews a teacher who's looking after a film club in a small school, which is a really kind of evocative introduction to how film can operate around the margins of the school space. And then we've got Saskia van Roomen, who has many hats, as she's just been saying. She's in charge of outreach for the London Film School. She's an Interfilm ambassador, and she runs a family film club, which is partly one after-school club, but also lots of work in the community, film festival in Bromley in southeast London. And Stephen Harris, who's the library's development officer from Midlothian Council, who's going to talk about a film in libraries program, which I think is in more than one library, Stephen. That's
yeah,
right.
It started off in 6 and on to many more.
Okay, so in a sense that's slightly different from the other two examples, because that's a bit more of a program and has a bit more scale, but still he has very particular examples that he's going to share with us. And so there's a kind of continuum, I guess, from film education, which is in and around the school building and the school community, to film kind of being outside, completely outside of the community, and with people, especially elderly people who aren't at school anymore, aren't at school age. So we've got a range of activities and settings and engagements that that our three speakers are going to speak to. As I've said, we'll talk between the three of us, four of us, for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up, and then it's a question of how long you want to kind of engage and ask and prompt. Might be an hour, might be a bit more. It won't be the full length, I don't think, that we've set up. So we're going to start. In the main, we're going to go alphabetically from Ralitsa to Saskia to Stephen. I'm just going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and their work. They've all got a little bit of moving image material. It's always great to see something moving on screen, apart from our speaking faces. So if I start with Ralitsa, if you want to say something about your work and about your organisation, and then show us the little bit of film that you've got to go with it.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Hello from Bulgaria. My name is Ralitsa Assenova, and I'm a co-founder of an NGO called Arte Urbana Collectif, based in Sofia. We have a film education initiative. In Bulgaria, no film education policies and no artistic education policies at all. So it's an initiative of an NGO, of our NGO, called the Cinema in School, and it's including several projects. So the first one is CINET. It's a project of education that we're coordinating for Bulgaria. The second one is Cinema 100 Years of Youth. It's a project of as well coordinating a workshop in Bulgaria. We are working a lot with this project with kids from our local place, and here we started the project of so that is another initiative that we started. Last but not least, we have a festival, organizing a festival called Meetings of Young European Cinema in Sofia with a young audience, and during the screenings, discussions, workshops, and young people have the opportunity to moderate discussions with film directors and filmmaking professionals, and to create some short practical exercises. So you are going to see now two short clips, two short festival trailers that were created by young people from Sofia and around that invite to the workshop. If you can see the two clips.
Okay, I think Flip's going to share the screen and play the clips now.
this was the first one.
Okay, yeah, they're great. Did we miss the sound on the second one, or was it?
Yes, the sound was pretty bad on the second one. I mean, yeah, we missed it, but well, you saw the idea of what you were doing.
Okay, well, if people have got the link, you can hear the
of course
with full sound. Ralitsa, sometimes your sound breaks up a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't think there's anything we can do about that, but just to be conscious.
Okay.
It kind of comes and goes. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to your introduction, just on the basis of the two clips?
No. Well, no. I will speak later about in detail about the initiatives that we're proposing and the different projects. So that was just an overview of what we are doing. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So Saskia, we'll hand over to you, and you've got one clip to play. That's right?
Yep. Yeah, like you said, I work for the London Film School as their outreach manager. And in my spare time, I also run various film clubs, one at a primary school here in Bromley and also in a library. Out of the library initiative also came the idea to run a yearly film festival. So the clip that we're going to watch now is from one of the film festivals that are organized. Flip, I think you can play that one now.
We've had an absolutely amazing day, full of films. We had street food outside, we've had face painting, we've had storytelling, arts and crafts. We've been incredibly creative, making animations.
I've made an animation with my sister. It was very fun.
We made the wardrobe move and the chairs, and we made them chase each other around the table.
We had like some clay and we had to make like figures and we had to like animate them on the computer. So you could move the figures around and play with them and make your own video.
So much activity going on here for the families. For us today, we've had a performance going on inside our studio, and then we did little crafts to go with it, and then outside we've been doing kite making.
Children their eyes just light up when they come in and they see there's so much junk to start playing with.
But there's a lot of parents doing the crafts and stuff as well. It's not just the kids. They've gone there with the kids and suddenly the parents are involved. Next thing you see, they're building their own.
We also invited an artist who created an amazing zoetrope, a huge old Victorian animation kind of toy. So people can spin it and look through the slats and see the films that are going on inside. And they have also made their own little zoetropes which they can take home afterwards. We're showing so many animation films, and we chose a few films that all had one thing in common, which was the animator. So we had Tim Allen, who is a stop motion animator, and he has worked with people like Wes Anderson on Fantastic Mr. Fox. He did lots of Tim Burton films, and he came to give a talk, sort of a Q&A stroke masterclass, and he's just run a workshop as well.
Well, it's a fascinating event for families and friends, and the kids are really having a nice time. And it's a very safe environment. It's lovely to be here. Everybody's entertained, the kids are happy. And the food is good as well. You know, pizza, that never goes wrong with kids. The Greek stuff is really nice. And paella. So we've kind of covered Italy, Spain, and Greece.
My highlight is definitely seeing the park used, the mansion house used in a different way. I have met so many people from around the local area, people I've known for a long time, people I met only a few weeks ago, and some very new people. It's been a real bonding experience.
It's very busy. I've never seen that park like this.
It's free, it's exciting, it's vibrant. There's lots and lots of different activities for anyone of all ages to do.
Yeah, food and film, you can never go wrong with that. You're muted, Mark.
Yeah. There's always going to be something quite poignant about films of groups of people enjoying themselves together, and without social distancing. It's feels like it's from a bygone age, doesn't it? Yeah. So, Stephen, are you going to introduce yourself and your piece of media? And yeah.
Sure. Well, thanks, Mark. I'll just sort of talk first about who I am. Stephen Harris. I'm actually a libraries development officer, so I'm not really coming from an education background, or in fact a film background. So, I'm a libraries development officer working for Midlothian Council. And why am I here? Well, I've been involved with the Film Education Libraries project, which was introduced into Scotland in 2016 across a number of different authorities. It was created and funded by Creative Scotland and the Scottish Library and Information Council. And it was aimed at providing provision of film and moving image education in places and to audiences that weren't really being reached before, I suppose. The idea was that libraries had really good links with communities, in their communities and community groups already, and maybe by utilising that aspect of what they do and what they are, they could reach people and other demographics who weren't interacting with cinema. The project's been going on for a number of years now, and we are going into phase 2 of it. Actually, we're in phase 2 of it just now, and projects from that rollout should have already started, but for obvious reasons they haven't. It's expanded hugely. There's another 12 local authorities have now joined the original 6. So film and libraries continues to expand and develop. I'll just get out of jail free clause. If you ask me anything I don't know, I wasn't project officer for this project, right? I was just involved. So I can tell you anything about what we did in Midlothian, and I've got an overview of what happened elsewhere, but no details. No details of anywhere apart from Midlothian. That's my get out of jail free card right there. There was a huge range, because it was all tailored to what different communities needed. There was a huge range of things. So, oh my goodness, authorities worked with early years. They developed film clubs and libraries in all sorts of different demographics. Elderly people was the one I was involved with, but there were lots of others. For example, Falkirk did a really innovative project working with young offenders, both male and female young offenders at Pullman YOI. There was autism-friendly screenings, dementia-friendly screenings, family screenings. North Lanarkshire worked with groups of under 5s as well. And one aspect of that first phase was working with archive film from the National Library of Scotland's Moving Image Archive. I'm going to ask Flip to show you a short film of one of those events. As you can guess, there was so many different aspects to this project. The film that actually covers all would take up far too much of our time, but there is a link there. So this is just a very short film just showing one aspect of it, which was the working with archive film in the community. Can you show that clip, Flip?
Girvan, a Scottish seaport town, population about 6,000, lying towards the south of the long west-facing coastline of Ayrshire. What sort of a place is this?
Welcome to this very special event. Girvan Library presents A Kind of Seeing. My name is Shona Thompson and I am your guide for this afternoon.
Well, I think I'll just keep farming here now till I'm that old that I can't farm. But the minute that I can't do it physically myself, I think I'll give up. I mean, the thing is,
my mum and dad always used to tell us about the house. It's that where the grass is. You can down. Oh, it's the follies.
And the wind up.
Yeah, I've never seen a picture of them. I just wondered what it all looked like, because I was fascinated.
Of course, there's golf. It's Scotland's own game, and it's played by all ages and conditions of men and women. Among the many fine courses in Scotland, Girvan's reputation stands high.
Thanks for that. That just kind of shows the kind of interaction that I suppose we go for on a lot of the projects that have been done through Scottish libraries, but I'll expand on that as we go through our discussion.
Excellent. It's quite unusual actually to want people to talk through a screening, isn't it? So, but actually seeing that audience all be kind of engaged and talking and pointing at stuff and nudging each other, it shows you the kinds of conversation, the kinds of connection that film can especially archive film of particular place can build in a group of people. So that's really quite a range of material and kind of projects and audience profiles that we've seen just across those three pieces of work. I want to start with a kind of simpler way in, I guess, and that's just to ask, what was there a moment or a film for you that kind of that switched you on to film, that made you think, well, here's a medium or an experience that I really enjoy and I want to share it with other people. Ralitsa, when you wrote in your article in the Film Education Journal, Daniel, the teacher you interview, said it was watching the piano. He said he wasn't really a film person and he saw the piano by Jane Campion and that made him think, oh, there's something to this art form that maybe I hadn't seen before. So for you, is there a piece of film that made you think this is what the experience that I want to share with other people? Are you there, Ralitsa? You are.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, in fact, I was thinking about, but I'm not sure when exactly and how I switched to film. But I have two episodes that I found important for my relation to film and film education, and that somehow influenced my vision of how film education programs should be proposed. So the first one is the first film that I not only discovered in cinema, but I was talking about afterwards, long time with my classmates, with my friends, about the characters, some scenes we were seeing again and again. I think this was The Fabulous Destiny of Amélie Poulain by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I think I was 14 at that time, and I have to say that I saw it recently on TV, and I was quite disappointed. But another story. So that was the first time that I really was probably surprised and really interested to know more about this atmosphere that the director created. And I was really sharing this with my friends. At that time there were no film education program when I was in high school, so that's why that was a kind of improvised film club that we were organizing with my classmates, and we were going very often, in fact, to cinema. We were even skipping classes to go. And once I discovered completely by accident, like my colleague Daniel with the piano, my thing was a meeting with Agnes Varda, and it was in a cinema hall in Sofia. I was with some friends that we were not sure what we were going to see, but it was French, and we were in French high school, so we thought, let's go. And then I saw a short film program with 3 films, Le Perrin Move, Salut les Copains, and Ulysse, 3 shorts of Agnès Varda. And then I really had this feeling that this is something unknown, and something, a language that I don't really fully understand, but it's so interesting and so inspiring. So yeah, afterwards, one or 2 years later, I went to university and in Paris, and I saw the whole filmography of Agnès Varda in the film school, in the film club in my university, and I even had the chance to meet her and to see her in discussions. So I think this is something that I keep for me as an important moment that guides me a lot afterwards on what I'm organizing and proposing, not only films but also discussions, meeting with directors, practitioners, etc. So, yeah.
That starts the bar pretty high with Varda. It's a nice start, and there's something sometimes something mysterious and that kind of brings you in to film when you see it in a different language, when you see it in a film in a language that's different from your own language, I guess. Ralitsa, we're also going to suggest, because your audio is kind of breaking up, it's a little bit better, but it might be better when you're speaking if you switch your video feed off.
Okay.
Might just it might just reduce the bandwidth a little bit. Anyway, but thank you for that start. Saskia.
Yeah, I didn't really grow up with film when I was young. It was not something that my parents really took me to or anything. So my earliest memory really is watching films at school. And I remember clearly watching a couple of massive tearjerkers, which was never really that great when you're watching it with your classmates. I remember watching Kramer versus Kramer and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which was, incredibly powerful as a young teenager watching these films. And then another memorable time, well, I suppose for me the most memorable times are the times when I've seen films in a special setting. So, for example, an outdoor cinema on Crete, or a little cinema in the south of France. I remember watching Paris, Texas, dubbed in French.
And often, as you're suggesting, it's the experience and the setting as much as the film itself.
Yes.
And Kramer versus Kramer, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, there's an interesting double bill, somebody to pick up on. Stephen, you said in your intro that you weren't really from film or from education, but from libraries. But is there something about that you picked up about a film or a film experience that has made you realise the value of or the possibilities, the potential of film with as you work with?
Well, I think as you say, I don't come from a kind of film or education background, and to be honest, but I've always been interested in film. I've always been liked what I liked in film, and I've always been interested in it, not just in consuming it, but what went on with making it and everything else that comes about and is connected with that art form. I'll be honest, when the project brief came round from SLIC and said, libraries and film in libraries, we looked at each other and said, "What? We don't do that. What's this?" But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, actually, yeah. I mean, film is telling a story. It's art and it's telling a story, and in libraries, I mean, stories and libraries go together. We've always been heavily involved in reader development, which is the whole idea of your book groups with readers reading a book that they might not necessarily pick up if they weren't part of that group. It's to take them a little bit out of that comfort zone and introduce them to something that, without being a member, they would never experience, but actually the experience could be really beneficial for them and switch them on into a whole different author or genre or way of reading. And I thought with the film clubs, oh, that's kind of the same thing. It's kind of exactly the same concepts, if you like. So the first film we showed, I remembered watching this a long time ago, and it was really a bit of a stab in the dark because I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I wasn't sure if it was going to turn up. So you can't fit the screening to your club audience or club membership, if you like. But the film we showed was In the Heat of the Night, which is very apt actually for current circumstances, and it was fantastic. I'd forgotten what a good film it is actually, and how good some of the actors are in it, and that made me realise that yeah, this project has legs and that this concept will work, because the discussion that happened, not just about, there was one lady who actually had lived in the South American South round about the times where the events were depicted. So she was able to talk to us about it, and there was lots of discussion about the actors themselves and various other things. And at that point, I thought, right, this will work. This is a thing that's going to take off. So yeah, I suppose that's where I'm coming from and my kind of angle on it.
It's a really nice example, and it reminds us that film has a long history and so many thousands of feature films that you can always find something that you've forgotten about and then make a connection with an audience. It's a really nice example. We're going to move on just to the question then of the kinds of experiences that you want to create, that you feel like that you want your audiences to experience. To start again with Ralitsa, what kinds of environment are you working with, and what kinds of experience do you want the children and young people to feel, to have?
Yes, I hope you hear me better now. So one of the experience that we are proposing to the children and teenagers is the our festival for younger cinema, and so the was several minutes ago. In fact, this is very important for us because it is a week of screenings, discussions, workshops. And it's a very intense experience for the group that are participating. So once per year, it's not enough, but yeah, it's important. It's important experience in terms of film education. Also, we are organizing workshops in libraries as well. Also, very good way for us to engage the young audience in Bulgaria. So most often the libraries, or what we call here читалище. It's a heritage from communist period. It's a large network of community center proposing cultural activities for youth. So these places, libraries and читалище, are already identified as a space where young people and young audience could receive a cultural or art proposal. So there is this small community already, and it's easier from my experience to get them into film and to get them in what we're proposing as discussions and workshops. We can do also some long-term programs or semi-programs in same spaces in libraries in Čitalište, and this is also another reason why we are working there. We are very active with some CNET clubs, so we are using the platform also within the curriculum, but also outside the curriculum. And yeah, with CNET also we are proposing some workshops, practical workshops, and it's yeah, it's clear that when we do them outside school, they have much more impact sometimes, and the community around also showing another context to children who have almost no access to cultural life and art. This is very important because in Bulgaria there are a lot. There are many villages, also middle and small towns in Bulgaria where there is no actual cinema hall, for instance, and there are whole generations that never been to cinema. And even in Sofia, we receive very often for some screenings kids that never experienced this ceremony, let's say, to go to cinema, to share the screening with others and the emotion from the film. So yeah, just to tell it as information, in 1963 in Bulgaria had more than 3,500 cinema halls. This is huge. Even in the village of my grandmother there was a cinema hall, and in 2008 there were only 9 more than 200 screens.
We missed that key. We missed that key figure in 2009. How many, Ralitsa?
69.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's quite a reduction.
That's quite a reduction.
How the kind of the cultural centres, the community cultural centres for young people actually fill that gap. As a really important alternative if you're losing cinema halls.
Yes, exactly. This is this is a space we are creating spaces for really a self-expression for these children through film, and sometimes this is difficult to create within school for different reasons we'll talk about later probably, but yeah, these places are very important because also many of these cinemas that exist today are located in the larger cities, in the shopping malls. So this is also big aesthetical and question of principle that we don't go to cinema to consume and to consume popcorns. We go to encounter and to see a film. So yeah, this is probably another subject. But yeah, something unique is happening actually when we invite students, teachers, and film professionals for a screening or other activity. And this is not only with cinema, also with other arts. And what is also one important thing that I want to point out is that these places, these workshops that we are creating and we are proposing are a possibility for this horizontal approach. We're talking about in Bulgaria much, but we don't do it so good, I think. So we are learning together with the students, and it is very good also to decrease the gap between good students and those who encounter some problems with the general school program, to have this space to express and to discuss and to present what film is actually, what this different language is all about.
Excellent. Thanks. That's quite comprehensive. There's a whole range of aspects that you've shared with us there. I'm quite interested that you also have a connection with libraries, and libraries, it seems, are going to be a thread that link the three of you together. Saskia, what kinds of tell us about the kinds of experiences that you promote, support, and enable?
Yes, it's funny, isn't it, that we're all going to the library for a shared experience. Yes, in my case as well, I wanted to set up something to emulate the kind of old-fashioned Saturday morning screenings for children where I live. But I was also very aware of certain families who find it difficult to go to the cinema and experience a film as a family, and especially families who have a child who has additional needs. So in the first instance, when I set up our family film club back in 2015, we tailored it especially towards those kind of families who, for example, have children who are autistic or any other sort of additional need that makes it harder for them to participate or to go to a regular cinema. So we really wanted to create a really special event that not only we would screen a film, but we would also organize a creative activity to go with it. Again, even though we live in London and, you know, there's many cinemas around, it's still much harder for children with additional needs to take part in a sort of quality cultural or creative event, a bigger event. So that was the first reason really why we set it up. But as the years have gone on, it's become a very relaxed space for any family to really join a morning with their child. We do all kinds of creative activities that have a link to the film, so that once it gets to watching the film, they feel that they've had this sort of experience and there is something for them to hook into when they're watching the film. So we've really done a wide range of films, and I always try to program films that are not the films that they would have probably seen in the cinema. So we try to screen films from different countries, old films, black and white, slapsticks. We're running through Into Film, the largest film education charity in the UK. So we're offering it for free to families. Yeah, so we really trying to create things like I work with a lot of artists, so we're doing either activities like making animations or using a light box or handling real film. So we unroll a film reel and look at it, and maybe we've done something with an old film and a black and white film, and we've colored it in and then rolled the spool back up and projected it on the screen. Yeah, we're trying to really make things tangible for the children. And it is a social event also for parents who may sometimes need to just have that time where they can chat to other people and get stuck in doing something with their child. Like the guys said in the film, you know, often you set out a whole activity and in the end it's the parents who seem to really get stuck in themselves. And I think what is important is that films often get put on for especially younger children as a kind of a babysitter. And in this way, by creating a real event around it, the parents are much more involved and it becomes much more a shared experience.
And that really comes across in the trailer, that the short film that you put there, that it is very tactile, very practical, very hands-on. It's taking apart the experience and addressing families through very kind of practical physical activities. I'm just wondering, Stephen, do you have much kind of face painting and cutting out and colouring and animating with your seniors? How do you set up a similar kind of fun and engaging environment for seniors?
Well, no, I'll go on to seniors. I'll just say that a lot of what Saskia says kind of resonates with us, because as I was saying, this project, Film Education Scotland, is really wide-ranging and there's lots of aspects to it, and other authorities have done very much the same kind of thing. Muirhouse Cinema in Edinburgh have done screenings for families who are families who basically can't afford to go to the mainstream cinema. So it's families from really deprived areas. And other authorities like North Lanarkshire have done Cine Minis, which is showing short films, but trying to encouraging the kids and the families to come along to engage in like craft activities and other things around the film to make it more of an event and give it kind of a value-added aspect. So a lot of what you're saying, Saskia, is ringing bells with me. One other thing, and it's just a general point about working with young people in film, Saskia mentioned working with young people with other needs, for example, autistic kids. I work with a group of autistic teenagers who meet at one of our libraries weekly, and just not being in a school or education environment actually is a big boost to them. They'll engage more with the film and they'll engage more with the group, because certainly the kids who come to us find school quite hard work and don't always have a great experience at it. Just being physically somewhere else does make a difference to them. Seniors, the Midlothian aspect of the project. As you pointed out, Mark, part of what we were aiming for was we were wanting interaction. We were actually wanting people to talk. I'd put in our kind of the slant we had on it in Midlothian was trying to engage older people in the community who might be socially isolated. So in that respect, we set up 2 separate film clubs, one of which was aimed at older men in one of our communities, because there's a lot of research being done to show that older men who are living alone tend to have kind of smaller circles of friends than women, and tend to suffer the effects of loneliness and the kind of mental health that is attendant to that. So that was one that was specifically aimed at men. And obviously, because it's older men, most women don't want to watch old cowboy films, let's be honest about it. So they could have a choice of what kind of thing they actually wanted to watch. And the other club we did was a much more broader range. It was just for really anybody who was within that kind of particular age bracket, within a different community in Midlothian. And as you're saying, what we were aiming for was interaction. It was actually film as a medium to overcome social isolation. For that reason, what I wanted to do is we wanted to show films that would get people talking afterwards. And we always viewed the kind of social aspect, a kind of discussion afterwards over a cup of tea, or an intermission even halfway through, where people can talk about, as I was saying earlier, aspects of the plot, the old film stars they might be seeing that they hadn't seen on screen for a long time, or anything else, just to get that kind of social interaction going. So I would make up, and my staff would make up kind of crib sheets to go along that would put on seats before the performance the screening started, which would just have cribbed facts. It would have a cast list on it. It would have a couple of quotes from the film. It would have a bit of background, some interesting facts about the film that they might not have known, just as a kind of primer as to what they were going to see, and also to spark some kind of discussion afterwards when we're talking about the film and what they thought of it. So yeah, from a Midlothian point of view, that's kind of where we were coming from. We wanted to use film as a gateway to get people not just into libraries, but to get people thinking about film, and to get people interacting with each other in circumstances where maybe they didn't have a lot of other opportunities to do that. It's really interesting about how you're able to reach different communities by going to different spaces. And I just wanted to move on again for everybody, particularly because people listening might find it, of practical benefit. Can you say one or two things about the actual physical environment that you use for your film clubs for each of you? Again, Ralitsa, in the article that we published with you and Daniel, you mentioned that when Daniel went to this cultural centre first to show his film, he realised when he got there that the walls were brown, so that he got the children to make the screen by sticking lots of A4 pieces of white paper. So the children were actually directly engaged in building the cinema, if you like. So can you just say something about the challenges maybe that you have to overcome in showing films and engaging with films in the rooms that you have to work with? For Ralitsa, and then Saskia, then Stephen.
Yes, this experience with Daniel is quite quite interesting, and we have this photo with the screen made from paper. So yeah, it's precious. Well, we work both in some big and middle cities and in small villages, and I would say that the main adaptation it's slightly different, and it's that film education is not at all structured in Bulgaria. So we are trying with different different projects, as I say in the beginning, and it is a kind of infrastructural problem. So we have to convince first why cinema, why film is important, how we can use it, how we can create cine clubs, and why we have to see films with subtitles, for instance, from Cinet programs. So many different questions. And once this is done, we have to make sometimes this materialistic adaptations concerning the environment. I won't say that we have huge issues, like in the most of the places where we go, there is a wide screen or at least a wall and a projector and some computer, we are having it. What I have experienced sometimes is that there's too much light in the rooms. So to have them darker, it's sometimes a bit difficult. Sometimes in some chitaliște, those cultural community centers in Bulgaria, we have these curtains that weren't moved since I don't know, since the 90s. So sometimes when I asked the lady, can we put the curtains in order to make the hall darker? It's a kind of a problem, because I'm asking something really new. But in general, especially where we have some contacts with teachers, so we are invited by locals and by communities, we have kind of conditions that are okay for our activities. And
And Saskia, are there challenges that you face, either when you're in Bromley Public Library, or, I mean, we'll come on to working in schools?
No, in the library, I use my absolutely ancient laptop that still has a DVD drive in it, and I connect it to the projector in the library, and we project onto a kind of a wide wall. And we're in a hall, in a really large hall. So there is luckily there are curtains, but we often have to just stick them together with tape, because it's not ideal always. But yeah, it works well. Long may my laptop continue to work, because it's very lo-fi, that's for sure. And then when I organize my festival, I work with an organization called Free Film Festivals, and they are run by a bunch of volunteers, and they have lots of equipment. So whenever there's a free film festival that goes that pops up somewhere, they come in and they provide the projection, which is great, because that is definitely something that it's a skill in itself. So I'm always grateful to them, and happy that in the library I can be very self-sufficient.
Is it the same in the libraries, Stephen, that is the infrastructure? I mean, you said that at the start that libraries they're not the most intuitive solution to the problem of where to screen films. So have you made adaptations there, or have you found is it straightforward?
It depends where you are. I mean, as you can guess, given the range of this project, the sheer different physical variety of the libraries is enormous. So you've got some libraries that are attached to proper halls, where you've got bleacher seating and you have drop-down screens and proper projection systems, and it's basically in a cinema. At the same time, you've got other places which just aren't really suitable at all, but they might be located in exactly the community you need. We were lucky to benefit in this project from the advice from Creative Scotland about the physical equipment. So the kit, it was kind of a one-size-fits-all kit that was bought for each authority taking part, is pretty good. And it was designed to be mobile. So the screen's one of these aluminium folded out things that you almost need to dislocate your fingers to get the actual vinyl on, but when it's up, it does the job fine. Complete with the kind of sound system and the projector, which was a really good quality, which does get past some of those problems with too much light. So the kit that we got as part of for this project helped to circumvent some of the kind of difficulties we might have had with physical settings. but we've got around it in other ways as well. For example, one of our projects at Dander Hall Library, we've had to run it outside normal hours. We simply don't have an extra space or a big enough space to do what we want to do when the public are in doing other library-related things. So we just have to run that at night outside of normal working hours. However, what you were saying about unexpected circumstances, someone mentioned, really did resonate with me. I remember we did 2 film events at Dalkeith Arts Centre, which is adjoining one of our libraries, and we administer it. And the first event was along the lines of the archive, an archive event with showing local history film, which was along the lines of the clip you saw before, although it wasn't the actual one. It was great. We had a live piano accompaniment with the silent films and everything, because a lot of it had no soundtrack. Fantastic evening. We planned something else further later on in the year, and it wasn't until I got there on the day I had the sinking feeling when I realised that the previous event we'd done at night, so it'd been pitch dark outside, but the windows for this event during the day had no curtains on them, and everywhere was bathed in light. So I had to improvise and basically get a load of curtains, which I Velcro buttoned right across the whole row of windows. So yeah, you have to sometimes improvise, because these are not purpose-built kind of facilities, which we're doing a lot of our activities in, and you have to think on your feet sometimes. But certainly in Midlothian, for most of our activities, you don't need a big venue. In fact, a big venue is kind of off-putting. If you're wanting to encourage people to talk and people to voice their opinion, you don't want a massive audience. A kind of nice small to medium size area to do your screening in is actually, for what we need it for, pretty much okay.
Just a couple more questions before we open it up a little bit more widely. We've talked about these settings not being school, and Stephen, you mentioned that for some of the young people who come to the Libraries Project, it's important that it's not in school. But Saskia and Ralitsa, I think you do work either with school buildings or with schools or with teachers. So I just wanted you to say something about how you work, how you can work with schools, and what schools enable you to do, and maybe who they enable you to reach, as well as the things that maybe schools don't permit at all. Were you able to do that, Ralitsa? Can you say something about how you work with, or how you work with Daniel, for example?
Well, yes, I have to say that there are some benefits for sure when film is mandated in school, and it depends on the context. But yeah, the first reason is, and the most important, is the presence of participants. So if our aim is to engage as much as possible, this is yeah, a very good reason to go into the school. And yeah, the most important is to work closely with the teachers. I have the chance to work with many teachers in Bulgaria. Daniel is a great example, because he's also a film director, so he's mixing 2 roles. And yeah, it's in Bulgaria, it's clearly thanks to teachers that we are organizing and creating this dispositive within school. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. So thanks to CNET program and CNET Cine Clubs we're creating with the teachers, really, this is something that we designed together, these regular programs. So this is example of film club in school, but in the same time, we can easily, once we are really in confidence with the teacher and we work together, we can easily propose a part outside school. So doing a short film or doing another exercise. So yeah, this is basically. I'm not sure that really answered the question, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you just reminded me that the CINED program, which is within school and is working in school time and is in a number of countries across Europe, I think the platform is available to schools in the UK, but lots of teachers maybe don't know about it. So we'll see whether we can find the link to CINED, C-I-N-E-D, to that platform and put it in the chat maybe before the end of the session, because even though there isn't a UK partner at the moment, I think that Filmhouse were involved at some point, or possibly, but it is available to access from the UK. So we'll see if we can find a link to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's everything. Also, I just have to say that everything is translated in English. All the pedagogical resources, all the subtitles are in English, available for free. So yeah, I really encourage you to try and to check the films.
And as if by magic, they've appeared in the chat. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Ginter. Excellent. Saskia, so what about working in and around the edges of the school, kind of literally when you're filming outside the school gate, just outside the school gates, as you were last year?
Yes, well, I've been running a film club in school since, well, for many years now. And initially we were just showing films, and then recently we became involved with Cinéma Saint-Anne de Jeunesse, which is an international film education program. And that really inspired us to do filmmaking in school as well. So we're not just watching films, we're also now making films. I just wanted to say that although I'm running in a school, it's an after-school club, so it's not really part of the curriculum. And I always steer away from it being too schooly, to be too sort of like homework. It needs to be fun, and it needs to be something that the children take seriously, but is not that they are learning something and then using film as a tool, if you see what I mean. I like the fact that the children can still feel like they're discovering something themselves, and that there's still a bit of mystery around film in general. We always seem to attract the children that are not really massively into sport, or perhaps are a little bit not so confident with large groups of children. I think working in schools, you can be more in tune with the children themselves, and you can do things on a smaller scale, which I really enjoy. So we can watch films that perhaps I wouldn't really show at the family film club, but things like, you know, Cave of the Yellow Dog, or Vajda, or, you know, films that are a bit more taxing. So that's something I really enjoy. And yeah, most recently, the past 2 years, we have focused on making films. And now that we are in lockdown, obviously, we had to change our approach a little bit. I don't know if this is a good point to just show what the Children in Film Club have been doing for the past 6 weeks, really, since the beginning of lockdown, and how I feel it has really helped them to really develop their eye, to really look at the world from a different point of view. And making films every week has really made them into little filmmakers. It's something that I'm really impressed by, really.
So shall we show the virtual film school clip, Flip? Can you find that? Have you got that? There we go. She's going to share the screen. I'm going to mute.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Guys, it's really lovely to see you all. We're going to make another short film. This piece is called Interpretation.
Let's go to the sense of balance.
Oh, no, we're doing it on sound.
Okay, so I'm just going to mute you. I can see that you're very excited about this next exercise. Big nods of heads, just to confirm that you can hear me. What we would like you to do is to make a short film inspired by the Lumiere brothers. What do you hear that you've not noticed?
I think the violin was a Foley. That was kind of a theme, maybe, but that could be a question for Adrian.
The theme was supposed to be at the beach, and I did it using things at home.
Cat fur. An eye.
An eye, yeah.
Daisy said reptile. It looked like a Komodo dragon.
In the shots, she got closer and closer to the dog at the point where she was beside the dog's mouth.
Where is the camera placed and what technique is used?
Well done, guys. Cheers. Yeah.
Yeah, so this shows the children in action, learning about filmmaking by using their own phones and iPads and whatever their parents have available. So we are working with 2 filmmakers from the London Film School to organize the sessions. Yeah, and we seem to be involved very intensively.
And shouldn't every Zoom meeting end with everybody raising a glass and saying cheers?
Yeah, that was actually
Aren't they having so much fun?
That was the wrap party, because we are making one film as a collective. So if every week we're doing an exercise, and then at the end we made a final film. So that was our wrap party. And yesterday we shot the credits.
It's lovely, and it just shows you sometimes that, you know, I guess it's what children teach us all the time, that you can get around all kinds of obstacles with a little bit of will and imagination, and something, you know, a nice glass of orange juice. We'll open out a little bit to some questions. Thank you, Ian, for putting in the link to the Cinema Cent Ans de Jeunesse program, which Ralitsa and Saskia have both mentioned and are a part of. And we've had a contribution from Errol. Thank you, Errol. In where did you say you were? I can't read it. But you're talking about your DocuFest and a teacher's digital library, film production lab for youth in Kosovo. Blimey. So actually quite close-ish to Ralitsa. Also Sarah asked whether you could make a contribution. I noticed, Sarah, that you were having cups of tea and coffee and chocolate biscuits brought to your elbow. You're having a much better conference catering experience than I am, but that's obviously fortified you to leap in. What do you want to say?
Yeah, so I'm based in Aberdeen, Scotland, and I run the Moving Image Education Hub. So I've been doing something similar. Like, I think I do a lot of yoga, so I've been using Zoom for about 2 years. So when it came to lockdown, I'd been wanting to do everything online for ages, but felt a bit of a twat doing it. But it really forced me, to, you know, learn how to use all the Zoom technologies, share my iPhone. So I've been having some great sessions with primary kids, with teachers, doing all of my training like online. And even this session today is really exciting because I've learned so much in just this discussion. It happens once a year, and normally I can't attend because it's the end of term. But in terms of talking about communities and how we work across different organisations, I think that should be not just in a local setting, but a much more national or European setting. So for example, I would love for my children in Aberdeen to maybe have a session or a shared experience with Saskia's kids, or to, you know, join with some other, you know, organisations. I've been chatting away here, but I just think this is such a great space. This is what the future is about. I don't see the future in classrooms. I don't see it in libraries. I teach at North East Scotland College. I teach TV production. As much as we need community spaces, we're looking at being in lockdown, what, till next year? You know, how is that going to work? And I think the wealth of people that we have here and the kind of the shared, like, I'm really keen locally. I've got a Google Classroom that all the teachers share what's working, what improves literacy, what works well in the classroom. And I would love to like have a further network with people in Scotland and elsewhere, just to kind of, you know, like I do with my yoga ladies, internationally, we catch up on this forum and we share teachings, we share good practice. And I think that sense of well-being, that's what film is about for me. For me, the films I love are like, you know, Tracy Emin, Lynn Ramsey. They're films that make me look at my own life as a woman and help give it validity in a sense, you know. And I think that's what's maybe missing in the next bit of lockdown. I've got a 15-year-old daughter. you know, where's her sense of community? I think it's really important that we have a wider sense of community, in a sense, so that we can engage and share films, not just, you know, in our own little geographic spheres, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'll stop babbling. That's all I wanted to say.
That's great. I mean, that's raised some really quite interesting questions. I think I'll ask people to respond to. But you've also, Sarah, just touched on a thing that it's been kind of bugging away at me since Kerry's talk yesterday, when she said that her film club is exclusively programmed by young people, and we can all see the benefit of young people being in charge of their own programming. But when it comes to something like equal representation of male and female perspectives, when it comes to looking at decolonizing curatorial programs, then maybe there is a role for adults to step in and say, no, watch this, because you haven't seen it before, and take, you know, at least to sometimes set some parameters, because otherwise, you know, you're completely left to chance. Not altogether a bad thing, but sometimes you want to give a bit of a steer. Anyway, Saskia just put a hand up. If you want to respond to that.
I was just going to echo with you, Mark, actually. I must say that I'm really undemocratic, and I normally choose the films because they have the world at their fingertips at home, and they can watch so many things themselves on their iPads, what have you. So I really want to show them films that they never would have heard of. So, but that, yeah. And then also I wanted to say to Sarah, that's exactly what I think this lockdown has brought to us as a film club, is really the thought that the world is our oyster, and how we can reach young people that normally we would never reach. And I think the only thing that holds us back really is internet connection, and the fact that some people don't have access to the technology. But apart from that, which is obviously a big thing, but I've also lent out iPads to children, and I would really hope that perhaps schools or libraries could help with providing technology to children who can't afford it.
Well, the Westminster government has sent out 200,000 laptops to schools, they say. They're all in the post, though, still. Ralitsa, Stephen, have you got anything to add on who chooses the films in your settings? Ralitsa, do you have a curatorial programming responsibility? Do you see, or do you let the young people choose themselves?
Well, yeah, it's as Saskia told, yeah, we are choosing the films. Well, me and my colleagues doing the screening or the workshop. I have to say that we are choosing together the films that we are working on. But yeah, I wanted just to say something that previously was said. This idea to share also with other film clubs, or even with other. Countries. I think this is very, very important, and we have to think about, I don't know, a common European organization or foundation for film education, because I can talk about our community and working a lot with the Roma children and with children with challenging social and cultural background. I have to say that doing film clubs and participating in film clubs outside school is the possibility to go also outside the local environment for them, which is sometimes very tough. Yeah. So yeah, this is I wanted to say that it's very beneficial for them to participate in those kind of initiatives. And 2 years ago, we had with Daniel, we had a group participating in Cinéma Saint-Anne de Jeunesse, and yeah, they went to Paris. Those children living in the small village. Afterwards, they got selected for a big festival in Bulgaria and traveled for the first time in Sofia, in Varna. This is this type of experience, meeting people, meeting the audience, I think is very, very beneficial, and could never have the same impact than just a presentation in school or just a discussion, a formal discussion, which is also good. But yeah, I think we have to think about doing something in common, probably.
And Stephen, in terms of choosing films for the programs in the library clubs, how is that managed differently in each setting, or do you have a kind of central centralised programming policy? How do you manage that?
The groups are very different, so I don't think it would really work if it was a centralised programming policy, although sharing good practice and passing on to anyone else who's coordinating a club what worked particularly well or what just didn't work at all, we always do that. What I've done when I've run film clubs is I've usually tried to, well, there's two things to bear in mind. Firstly, we're always trying to choose a film. If we're talking about with our kind of older people's film clubs, we're trying to choose a film that they might not necessarily have seen before, or if they have, it will have been a while back, and also one that's going to, of course, spark that discussion. It'll maybe feature kind of older actors, or it'll be a film that's regarded as a classic that they probably won't have seen. So we want something that will take them slightly outside their comfort zone. So for that reason, we don't tend to go for really up-to-date blockbusters or really mainstream films. It tends to be something else. But at the same time, because that's a caveat, we do want them to have some kind of ownership and some kind of choice. I don't want to be the one standing up and saying, and next month it's going to be this, and everyone groans. No. So what we'll usually do is, I mentioned before about the kind of primers that we'd make up and print off that had information about the film that they were going to see as conversation points. We'd usually also put something on that about giving a choice of what they would watch for the next month. So it would be a choice of films that we know are pretty good, are fitting into the kind of area that we want, but at the same time, it's giving people a choice of which of those they actually want to see. And the advantage of doing that is, of course, that we can check whether our license actually covers us to show them, rather than just saying, what do you want to see? And it turns out we can't show what it is that they want to see. Just picking up on the point as well, we're talking about, Sarah was talking about this whole new world about Zoom meetings and electronic communication and being able to contact other people. I totally agree with that. I think it is kind of here to stay, and I think it does broaden the horizons and allow a lot more engagement with people who otherwise wouldn't be able to take part. However, from our very narrow perspective, the people we've been working with originally in phase one of the project here, the older age group, it tends to generally, it's a bit of a stereotypical view, but most of them don't really want to engage with Zoom that much. Or, for example, some of the kind of elderly people we deal with haven't used their bank card to make an online purchase. This kind of technology is completely, they can't do it. They can't do it. So if they want to engage with film, they have to go to a physical place and sit down and watch it.
We're going to wind to a close over the next few minutes, but there's just a couple of questions just to pick up from the chat. Scott has asked just for Stephen about the appetite of seniors to be involved in filmmaking, if there's anything as well as film watching. We can see, I think we've seen the Saskia and Ralitsa, that there is a kind of mixture of making and watching. And Stephen, so how engaged are seniors in filmmaking? Have they got an appetite for that, given what you've just said about technological challenges or fears they might have?
It's hard, but if they come from it from a different angle than simply, I want to make a film, then you can get engagement and buy-in. We're involved in another project that involves making very short kind of documentary style films with Macmillan, digital storytelling it's called, and it's about making short 3-4 minute films about it's personal stories of people who have undergone a cancer journey or have been affected by cancer in some way. And when it's something very personal like that, I think you can get seniors to buy in, and if you guide them and give them the right kind of support and guidance with technology, they can come up with some really very moving short films. But I think in my experience, at least, it tends to be less I want to make a film angle than I want to tell my story about something as an avenue into filmmaking.
And Kathleen's just reminding us that putting children and young people together with seniors and getting them to work collaboratively. I think Lena and Silke were talking about something similar, which is kind of essentially cross-generational, where you want to make something together, and then you have a need and a purpose, as you've just said. And Narina, you in Indonesia, Narina, has asked a question about how you how you build up community links and keep your programs sustainable. And it's a kind of central conundrum in any kind of social project or cultural or arts project. The desire on the one hand to go and find money in order to make something sustainable, but that means by its definition the program isn't sustainable because you need money to do it. So how do you keep things going, either with or without money? Ralitsa, how does it work?
Just to be sure that I understood well the question, how we organize
how do you reach community groups and keep your program sustainable? How do you keep communities involved?
Okay. Well, it's quite complex. I think it's different from our experience with the Roma community in some villages in northwest Bulgaria. It's a question of partnership, first of all, with a local library or a local cultural center for youth or a teacher. So I think the first point is to identify a person or a structure, let's say, that is already within the community. And afterwards, we are proposing our projects and collaborations. And I think the most important is to design together with this local person to work together on what is the best way to start engaging this community. For instance, with Daniel in the village of Dermanci, film works really well. We did, and also to engage not only children but their parents, the teachers, and really the local community. It's really this. They were quite reunited around this experience of filmmaking. So yeah, and how make it sustainable? A lot of you have to be persistent, I guess, and yeah, and find the way to adapt also to the audience, I would say.
And Saskia.
Well, we have some buy-in from the local authority, from various parent groups, but really I understand that it is really because I'm driving it that it exists. Sometimes sustainability is quite difficult when you can't clone yourself, and it's quite a specific uses a specific sort of interest to keep it going. But I always try to run things cheaply, so that we're not really massively reliant on writing grants or anything. The library gives us their space for free. We work through Into Film, and we don't charge. So it is in that way it has been quite easy to sustain. It needs a little bit of money, but yeah, we get a little bit from a few local sponsors. But in the end, I think keep things simple. We use a lot of Facebook to connect with parents. A lot of parents are in Facebook groups, and I think that is probably around the world now. So you can always find an audience there. And then, of course, the library has their own sort of audience. I hope that that is a bit practical.
Yeah. And for Stephen, similarly, keeping community engagement.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a kind of different situation in that we're a local authority, so we've got staff to run these shows, and they're going to, and they're paid staff, and it's done on local authority time. The actual financial outlay isn't excessive. It tends to come down to licenses basically every year, which we have been helped out with in the past. So in financial terms, it's not so bad. But yeah, the community links are absolutely vital. And as was said earlier, it's kind of dealing with people or organisations that already exist within the local communities. Again, we're kind of fortunate in that we've got a long-standing history of doing partnership with all sorts of organisations operating locally. So just to give particular examples that just spring to mind, our film clubs for seniors, the Red Cross know about them, and they'll refer people who they're helping who have been released from hospital to these film clubs if these people are going back to a household and living alone, and they'll inform them about a range of activities that they could do to get out of the house. And that's one of the means by which people come along to our clubs. It's people who have suffered periods of ill health and are just wanting something to take them out of the house, essentially. But that's all referrals through the Red Cross. And another screening we did was a screening of How Green Was My Valley, believe it or not, from 1940 something. But it was actually, we did that at the request of the local community council, who knew we ran clubs, and we ran that, and it was a kind of celebration of the community's mining heritage. It's an old mining village that the mine's long since shut, but that brought a lot of the kind of old ex-miners out and their families. And as a result of that, we've built up links with the community council, who are now interested in trying to get funding to do some kind of community cinema thing under their own steam. So all these connections really do bear fruit.
That's brilliant from the three of you. Thank you very, very much, not just for that answer, but for what you've contributed over the last 90 minutes. It's clear, just another kind of answer to Narina's question, how do you keep these programs, these projects, organisations sustainable? They are down to the efforts and the enthusiasm and the passion and the time and the dedication of some quite special people. And I think Stephen, Ralitsa, Saskia, you've demonstrated really how important it is to have that kind of passion and enthusiasm, whether you're employed or not employed, how many different hats you've got. That having those kind of skills and that dedication is, that you're central to the success of film education in whatever setting or environment that it's happening in. So thank you very, very much for sharing that, and also for doing what you do. And at this point, do we have a round of applause? Let's see whether anybody's. We do. We have silent rounds of applause and silent raising and chinking of glasses. Thank you, but thank you all very, very, very much. The session's been recorded, so it's going to be available, I think, on the Eventbrite site. Is that right, Jamie and Flip? I think, and maybe even on the Film Education Journal website, maybe afterwards. Anyway, if you want to come back to it and pick up any of the links, particularly from the chat, and thank you very much for all of those contributions. Thank you. Ian Wall has put down there a link to an online course, which I think is still open through FutureLearn, if you want to follow a little bit more about film education, and to a film education framework that a group of European partners put together a few years ago. But so thank you all very much. And at this point in a conference, we would all step down and relax, and we'd start milling around and go and chat with each other. And it always feels a bit sad when you just suddenly, when the window closes and you're left on your own again. But that's where we are. Until next time, until we meet again, as the lady sang, some sunny day, maybe next year.
Thanks, Mark.
I think there's just a reminder, we are going to meet, or we're hoping to meet again this time next year. Is that right, Jamie? And we might be doing something which is a bit more blended, which has some online stuff as well as face-to-face. I just can't say goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.